Hello, this is John McGowan. I'm here with John Davis and Sheena Patel. We'll go through the Mavericks team stock, our Markstrat financial analysis for UMass 660 marketing for Dr. Radajeri. Jump right into the agenda. For team stock, we want to focus on showing you the strategy we went through for the simulation, our R&D brands, how we developed our products, our targeted segments, how we positioned those products, and then channels, where we targeted and sent those positions out to market. A summary on our advertising, commercial, and price. Brand summary for each of the 5 brands we developed, and then the overall results and lessons learned. On the strategy, we really focused on targeting and prioritizing the profitable or underserved segments. We wanted to have well-designed brands for each segment, so you can see we did different design iterations to keep tweaking that brand to meet those customers' wants and needs. We increased profit through that to grow our R&D, advertising, and commercial budgets. We hit a few challenges we'll talk about. We also, by staying on top of the brands with the appropriate perceptions, we were able to target high price points for each of the segments. Staff-wise, we focused on putting our FTEs in the right segment in the distribution. With the marketing research, we were able to promote high-quality messages consistently. And production-wise, we focused on the market forecast, market share, and our brand surveys to really tailor what we loaded in the production market. To give a couple summaries, here's our stock price index. The blue line here is our team stock. We took a serious hit in period 1 where we launched brands as new versus modified as we should have, and we lost our awareness and really started from square one. So it took a big dip, and we would have had a lot of additional revenue. More importantly, what hurt us in the end when we had our strategy all set up, we had a typo error in one of the brands, and we ordered a factor of 10 more on volume and took a $58 million penalty, which brought down our resources, and everything else hurt our margin. If you look at the overall margin for our earnings before tax, it's still a good story given the challenges we went through, and then you'll see you lay a $58 million problem on here. That's where we struggled in the end with those 2 errors. If you look at the R&D, again, we focused heavily. We developed several brands, new brands to cover each segment, as well as keeping those brands tweaked to the customer wants and needs. But we invested $10.6 million. That enabled $310 million of contribution margin. So a significant win for the organization in the simulation. We focused the 5 brands. We're the only team to do that. So SoX for our Explorer, Solo for our Shopper, SoStar for a professional segment, and SoHigh for the high earners, and lastly the Saver segment, we have the Soft 2. And if you look at how we stacked those, our Shoppers was our top priority. It really peaked in the last few periods. And the professionals and the high earners kind of flattened out, and the Savers, as predicted in the analysis, they peaked up and really crested. And then as forecasted as well, the Explorers just dropped off. And that's how we stacked our brands as well. We resourced. And in the end, we really should have pulled more resource from these lower brands and put them into the more profitable brands. And that's one of the other improvements we'll talk about. If Sheena, can you take it and give us a summary on the channels?
Great, thank you, John. So as John alluded to earlier, we were the only company to have 5 brands targeting each of those segments for Explorers, Shoppers, Professionals, High Earners, and Savers. So really taking you through, for example, under the Savers, we had our Soft brand, and you can see in comparison to FTEs and advertising budget that we had allocated versus Note, our direct competitor, we were at 65 for FTEs and versus 85. And then with advertising, we were again much lower at 3.2 million versus 8 million for our direct competitor in that segment. This appeared to be a trend as we went across looking at all the shopper segment and the professional segment, and really our lack of dollars associated to both FTEs and advertising did ultimately harm our market share for each of these brands, but this is something that we'll go into speak about in more detail as we take you through the brands. One good thing around our strategy was that we did allocate each of the allocate the dollars based on channel distribution per brand segment. And this was looked at over periods to see how that changed and made sure that our allocation was adjusted to ensure we were in line with the channel distributions, which ultimately led to a good strategy. Next slide, please. Okay, so taking you through our Solo 2 brand, this was launched in period 2. It was a repositioning of our original Solo brand, which was targeted purely for the shopper segment. This segment, as John alluded to earlier, had a consistently high growth that was seen over time and across the different periods. So in terms of results, we had an investment of 1.1 million, which returned 105 million. At peak, which was in period 4, we took 53.1% of the market share. Due to a number of errors, that market share value dropped to 16.7% at the end of period 6. We did, however, end with a strong brand awareness of 73% for this brand. So ultimately, the lessons learned here was that the heavy upfront R&D costs had limited our commercial and advertising spend, and this was highlighted quite nicely on the previous slide, where we were significantly lower compared to our direct competitors. We encountered inventory holding costs, which did impact our overall revenue, and we will speak to this bullet point a little bit more in the presentation later. And overall, we just do need to allocate adequate advertising, both for media and research, and FTE budgets to ensure success. Next slide, please. Okay, so our SoStar brand was launched in period 3. This was aimed at targeting purely the professional segment. Initially, we had aimed to capture some of the the explorers and high earners, but the team quickly realised that a more focused strategy just targeting professionals will yield better brand performance, and that, you can see, resulted in a good launch strategy. So we had at P3 we captured 34.7% of the share. However, a gradual decline in that share was seen over time, with 19.7% as our ending share in P6. We did, however, again, as with Solo 2, end with strong brand awareness at 73%. But our limited resources did hurt the performance of this brand. So I'm now going to pass it over to John Davis to take us through the other brands.
Thanks, Sheena. So our overall strategy of the team for our Sonnet products was to target each individual market segment. And keeping with that theme, our Saver segment, we targeted our Soft 2 brand. This was actually in error a new product launch as opposed to a modification of our original Soft brand that John mentioned earlier. But the overall strategy here was this was our low price, essentially low feature economic product that we introduced to the market. We needed high volumes with our lower margins in order to actually gain that net contribution and be successful. The initial results with this was a $1.5 million investment. We were able to gain a lot of our contribution margin here back. We got $63 million in contribution margin from our Soft 2 brand. Our market share peaked in period 3, as shown there in the graph, our yellow line, with our direct competitor and obviously our only competitor in that market, that Note brand, is the purple line there. Our P6 share dropped to 25%. Based on a couple of errors and also based on our main competitor getting extremely aggressive in that market. Our awareness was up at 68%, with our intentions actually down at 28%. As I mentioned, in P6 we dropped our price about 9% and ended up losing some market share. Some of the lessons learned was, again, launching a new brand as opposed to the modification of an existing brand, so we lost some of the awareness and purchase intentions there. And in P6, we also dropped the price. turned out not as effective, where our competitors increased significantly their advertising and commercial budget to continue to take market share in that segment. So in that vein, we've lost awareness and purchase intentions there. That's our Soft 2 brand. Next slide, please. So in an effort to take the Explorer market, which was admittedly a shrinking market, there were, at the time of launch in period 3, there were no brands currently meeting this market segment need. And so the strategy was to go in and take this, even though it was essentially a dying segment, we felt like we could take that contribution margin and market share there anyways. And so we took this underserved Explorer market due to their needs as a segment in terms of pricing and features. So the results were an initial $1.6 million investment with a return of $3 million in contribution margin. At launch, we gained 22% market share, and by P6, took 58% of this market share, which was an incredible win. Unfortunately, it's essentially a low-margin product, but P6 we did still out. The lessons learned was after launching in P3 at 600K, X inventory for 700K loss. We did win the underserved market with design, channel, and price, as noted here, but essentially this was a shrinking market segment with a shrinking forecast attached to it. We could have taken some of those resources we allocated there and applied them to other brands. So the high earners market, though, this was an incredibly successful product that we launched to target the high earners market segment. There were essentially 2 brands existing in this market, and our goal was to go in with superior product and with strategic pricing to take that market share, specifically from the Nova brand, with an incredibly high margin opportunity attached to this market segment of this brand. So the results that we initially invested $870K with incredible returns of $45 million in contribution margin. We were able to, by P6, earn 44% of this high earner market share. As mentioned, an incredible achievement. Some of the lessons learned, though, is we could have developed this product much earlier in the simulation period. This high earner market share, we could have gained much more of that contribution margin if launched earlier in the process, perhaps before the SOAC brand. And one of the main lessons learned, as John mentioned earlier in the presentation, was the ordering typo and production for this. We're left with $512,000 in excess, or 512,000 units, creating essentially a $58 million shortfall there, where we meant to order 80,000 units of production and actually ended up ordering 800,000 units. A clerical error there, essentially. So the overall results was that we finished in 2nd place on our share price index, and we went actually from last to 1st place with a top cumulative net contribution of $310 million. We were outspent on our advertising and our FTE budgets, basically due to our resources being stretched a little bit further due to having 5 brands as opposed to 2 or 3 like most other people. Overall, a solid business strategy, though. Next slide, please. Some of the lessons learned we mentioned in the earlier slides, but basically we can't make silly mistakes, typos, and modifications instead of new brands. We could have borrowed funding earlier in the period also, and paid that back earlier to eliminate our exposure toward the end of the simulation. We can't let the competition out-invest us, which is what we did here by kind of stretching our resources too thin with 5 brands. We could have probably let go of one of our products or just allocated fewer resources in order to gain that market share back, and also purchase our market studies earlier in the simulation period to get some of that competitive market information. Overall, a solid business strategy. We ended 2nd place, and it was a successful run. Thank you.